There are men with power and there are men with presence. And then there are men who mistake money for masculinity. They command rooms financially, but disappear physically. Rolex on the wrist, softness in the mirror. The gap is where respect dies, and no amount of success closes it. Welcome back to Iron Suits, where strength wears the crown. I am your host, Marwan Killu. Man, I've got to tell you, today's episode fires me up more than just about anything else we talk about on this show. We are diving into what it means to become a complete man, someone who operates at an elite level. When I say elite, think about it this way. Imagine being the kind of guy who moves through life with this almost magnetic force. To people watching from the outside, everything you do looks smooth, looks natural. Now listen, I'm not claiming that your life is easy or that you don't work your ass off. Okay? What I'm saying is you've developed this capacity to navigate life in a way that just appears effortless. You've got this ability to shape your reality almost like the world bends towards what you're building. It's like having this powerful influence over yourself and everyone around you. So you consistently get the outcomes that you're after. If you're tuning to this show, if personal development gets your blood pumping, if winning matters to you, then this conversation should light you up. I genuinely believe every man should be reaching for his absolute peak potential. I was scrolling YouTube and came across with Patrick Bet-David, someone who I really respect. And he broke down those three characteristics. I'm not sure if he originated this from, concept from somewhere, but he presented it. I don't know where he got it from, but he presented it with a solid backing. All right. And essentially, he outlined three traits that create an elite man. So let's break them down. The three characteristics that make a man elite, that give them real influence, are first, respect, second, fear, and third, this one is optional but powerful. You don't absolutely need it, but when you add just the right amount of likability to that respect and fear, your influence just goes through the roof. You become one of those men that people can't help but pay attention to. So we're going to unpack all three, but think about your own journey for a second. You come to this world, you move through elementary school, middle school, high school, maybe college, all these different chapters. But if you can remember being on the playground around 11, 12, 13 years old, right? Actually, maybe even younger, especially in those middle school, high school years, 15, 16, 17, something deep in our wiring makes us crave respect from other guys, right? It's hardwired into us. We instinctively know if our peers have a healthy respect for us. If they understand that crossing us would have real consequences, physical ones that create a certain dynamic. This is evolutionary stuff for young men, and here's what's fascinating. This doesn't just disappear when we hit 20, 30, 45, 60 years old. If you just put yourself back on that playground mentally, you realize, yeah, nobody wants to be the weak kid. Nobody wants to be the guy who gets pushed around the football team. Even in youth leagues, if your teammates don't respect you, if there's no edge to you that they don't recognize, you get dominated. In sports, this dynamic plays out in real time. Eventually, kids who can't earn that respect, who don't have any element that makes others think twice, usually drop out, especially in physical sports like football, hockey, even basketball. Most competitive. These are the most competitive sports, really. The wolf that shows its teeth survives. The wolf that hides them starves. What's interesting to me is watching this transition, this deep rooted desire to be respected and to have others understand you're not someone to be messed with. Not that you're out to hurt people, but if someone crosses a line with you, there'll be repercussions. In those middle and high school years, it's entirely physical, completely physical. None of us have real money. Whether your family have wealth or not doesn't really matter much. In some places, coming from money might actually make you more of a target. Other kids label you rich kid and give you a harder time. The point is this. In the beginning, respect and fear are built purely through physical presence. For young men, that's a currency. Now, something shifts when you graduate college or cross into your 20s. I remember when I was in college, pretty much everyone knew I was broke. We were all in the same boat. If you stripped away all the layers, status still came down to those two things, respect and fear. But here's where it gets interesting. We're also evolutionarily wired to reproduce, right? So sex and attraction enter the equation. After college, your ability to have more options with women, your capacity to attract quality partners, it's not solely about physical presence anymore. I mean, yeah, sure, you can be physically imposing and even good looking, but even if you're dead broke, you're not going to have the same influence or attraction as someone who's physically imposing, attractive, and financially solid. So what typically happens after college is that all that energy went into sports, into dominating physically, into building and maintaining your body. Because up to that point, we think attracting women means becoming the most attractive version of ourselves physically. And the most attractive version isn't 50 pounds overweight, but it's also not rail thin. I was in that skinny category. As a 15-year-old, I inherently knew I needed to hit the weights room. I had a pigeon chest or a bird chest, as they call it, right? Real thin waver, what's the word? Waver, is it waver thin bones? Anyway, so why did I want to hit the weights room? Not just to look better, but because wafer thin. I don't know. I didn't want just to look better, but because I wanted respect from the other guys at school. You know, coming from a foreign country, from the streets of Baghdad, coming, first brown kid into an all white school, at the time when the Gulf War had started against the Iraq, came into the UK. So here's this kid coming from, Baghdad, and this kid, oh, you're brown, you're somebody different, and it's like you don't belong here, right? So immediately you needed to sort of hit the weights room to stop being picked on. And something inside me was screaming, get your ass in the gym and put in the work because you're way too skinny. It felt completely natural. All these guys were like big and strong, and they've been playing sports since they were gosh, probably since the time they're out of their mum's womb. And here we are in Baghdad when it's like it reaches 60 centigrade in the summer. In the winter, as soon as there's a cloud in the sky, we're like, no, we're not going to go out and play. The teachers are too lazy, right? So we didn't get to play. We didn't get to play much sports at school. Not to mention it was a developing country or a country torn with war. Um, anyway, I digress. So it felt completely natural to go to the gym. And after college, sort of everything shifts. All that energy previously dedicated to becoming the most attractive, respected, feared version of ourselves. Now we're chasing that respect and fear through our bank accounts. We trade the iron for the inbox. We swap the battlefield for the boardroom, and we think we're winning. And this is where I see countless men run into serious problems. Over the years, from 20 to 30 to 40, men often spend 1, 2, even 3 decades chasing wealth. In the early days, part of motivation is having more options for a partner. Then many men get married, and the thinking becomes, well, I don't need to worry about attraction anymore. I'm not chasing pussy. I'm not some, whatever, 20-year-old chasing pussy anymore at the nightclub. I've got my wife. She said her vows. We have kids. So the attraction and sex place is like handled. Now my job is to make as much money as possible to protect my family. And that's a thought process right there. You know what you tell yourself at 2 a.m. when you're still working? This is what it takes. This is what a man does. I'm building security. And you are. You are. But you're also building something else. A body you will eventually hate. As this plays out over time, what we consistently see is that at some point, 35, 40, 45, 50 years old, after dedicating all that energy to building wealth and security, you look in the mirror and you don't respect who's looking back at you. That guy's 50 pounds overweight, maybe 100 pounds overweight, soft, weak. You've been so busy building an empire that you forgot you're supposed to be the king who rules it. Your reflection offers no internal respect. And if there's no internal respect, there's definitely no external respect. The respect disappears because you've let physical components slide. And the thing that used to matter then didn't seem to matter, but eventually matters again. The respect disappears because you've let the physical components slide. The thing that used to matter then didn't seem to matter, but eventually matters again. Yes, I've just said it earlier. I'm repeating it one more time. Just to make it clear. Okay, so it's the same thing with fear. You might argue that a man with a big bank account should command a certain wariness. But here's the truth. Real elite men, when they see someone with a fat wallet or an expensive watch, who's also 50 pounds overweight, there's no respect and there's no fear. See, money can buy you a Rolex, but it can't buy you the risk that makes other men notice the man wearing it. And without respect and fear, there's no influence. You don't have maximum influence when you're soft and weak. It's just not possible. Usually there's this cycle that plays out. You've probably seen it at the highest levels. Guys like Jeff Bezos, one of the wealthiest guys on the planet, right? He got divorced and what happened? He got ripped. And you've seen those before and after photos of Bezos, on his boat. There was this article in major publication, might have been Forbes, can't quite remember, with the headline something like, "A CEO's new status symbol is his body." And there's Bezos on the jet ski, triceps, biceps on display. That's a new flex. Why? Because he'd already conquered respect and fear and influence financially. But then something shifted. Something ancient in his DNA called him to actualize his physical potential, not just his financial potential. You saw the same thing with Mark Zuckerberg. He trained with these MMA fighters. He was preparing for a potential cage match with Elon Musk. And look at the pictures of Zuckerberg now. He went from looking like a skinny tech nerd to a man with actual physical presence. I think the hair helps as well. I'm not saying he's a world champion fighter, but he transformed from having no physical presence to being someone worthy of respect. And that element of fear, because he trained himself in combat sports. Once again, you see these men who won financially in a way that would blow everyone's mind. They've still got the hero's journey that they need to complete. They need to compete with their bodies. They've still got this hero's journey they need to complete for their bodies. It's always there. Most men try to ignore it. Most men want to pretend it doesn't exist. But this desire we have as men to be respected and feared, it can only be satisfied by both money and body, not one or the other. If you're generally going to be an elite man, you can't get there without being physically weak. That's just a fact. No amount of money can fill that void if your physical presence isn't on point, and if you haven't pursued your potential in your physical body. Let me repeat that again. No amount of money can fill that void if your physical presence isn't on point, if you haven't pursued your potential in your physical body. The armor of wealth means nothing when the warrior inside is already defeated. And the reason I'm pressing this point is because so many men who reach out about our program, or guys that I talk to in everyday life, they all say the same thing. They're just not motivated. They can't figure out how to find motivation. And I know what you're thinking when you say that. You're lying in bed, scrolling at your phone at 11 p.m., knowing you should be up at 5 a.m., 11 p.m. Did I say 11 p.m. or a.m.? 11 p.m. Knowing you should be up at 5 to train. 5 in the morning, not afternoon. But you hit snooze tomorrow. You'll start Monday. You'll start next month. You start when things slow down at work. Except work never slows down. Monday never comes. And the months stack up like bricks in a wall between you and the man you know you should be. To me, that's hard to understand because everything I do serves this desire. I believe we all have. It's just being suppressed on most men. To be elite. To stand out. To be in the top 1%. To refuse to be average or just like everyone else. When we peel back all the layers, it comes down to this. Are you respected? And you can't earn respect from the world if you look in the mirror and don't see respect in your own eyes. Do you command that element of fear? Do you have that physicality, a capability in your body where if someone were to disrespect you, They'll know that there will be consequences. Or are you a soft man with a fat bank account? You're driving a car that commands, that demands respect, while sitting in the body that demands a doctor's appointment. All the motivation a man really needs has been inside of us from day one. It's always been there. The problem, if this resonates with you and you're thinking, man, I don't know why I can't get my act together. I just don't feel motivated to handle my physical side, is that you've let this nature part of yourself die. It's meant to be inside of us men. It's supposed to be there. If you'd allow it to wake up again, you'd have an endless well of motivation to become the absolute best version of yourself physically. Because you'd know that if you became a man who's respected, who commands certain wariness, and has just enough likability, that's where you can cut through life. You get more options. You live a completely different existence than the average man. Some of us want that badly. This desire burns strong, and then there are plenty of others who would say, I don't care about any of that. If you're the type of man, that type of man, we're just wired differently. There's nothing really I can say other than bringing this up that might spark something in you. But for everyone still listening right now, you probably already have this desire, because you wouldn't still be listening. You wouldn't be nodding along and thinking, he's right. What he's saying is absolutely right. You're probably thinking about that shirt that doesn't fit anymore. The one in the back of your closet. The one from 5 years ago when you actually gave a shit. You know the one? You wouldn't be doing that if you didn't know it exists inside of you. So my advice to everyone listening, let it live. Let that desire breathe. Let your desire be the best you can be, to represent winning at all times, to win financially and physically. Let it live inside of you. Let your desire to be elite exist fully. Let it live even when society wants to crush it down. They don't want elite men. I don't know exactly who they are, but I promise you, the way society operates, they don't want elite men. They don't want men who stand firmly in their values, who command and demand respect and fear simultaneously. They don't like it. They call it toxic. But a sword is only dangerous to a person who refuses to sharpen themselves. But I think pursuing your potential is one of the most beautiful things in life. So if you want to be elite, if you want to be masterful in your influence, understand this. You cannot achieve that if you ignore your physical side. You can't, because it all comes full cycle. Maybe you're the person who's focused intensely on building the business, being an entrepreneur, making 10 million or 30 million, maybe even $50 million. You pour so much energy there. You were motivated to protect your family, to set them up, to create security, to build this financial fortress around your family legacy. You've been laser focused on that. But you can't be a complete man if your physical presence isn't also elite. If that's you, if you've chased financial success, if you've bought status symbols like Rolexes, if you drive incredible cars, if you have 2, 3, 4, $10 million houses, but you've got a beat up body, you're missing out massively, man. You build a castle but forgotten to forge the sword. And every king knows eventually someone tests the castle gates. Yes, you understand business. You know how to create wealth. But if you added elite physical presence to what you've already mastered financially, watch how dramatically your influence expands as a man. Because the physical component's the most ancient part of the equation. And if you're on the opposite end, if you're jacked, can knock out 100 push-ups, completely dialed on your fitness, but if you haven't mastered making money, you're also missing half the equation. The warrior without resources dies brave, but dies poor. And dead kings don't build dynasties. As men, this is our call to greatness. There are two areas we must master: our physicality and our ability to earn financially. Two things, not one. So we're in 2026. If you're weak in either area, I strongly suggest you go all in on whichever one that needs work. Watch what happens when the rest of your life when you do. You know what you need to do. You've known it for months, maybe years. The only question is whether you're going to keep lying to yourself about starting tomorrow, or whether you're going to become the man who looks back a year from now and can't even recognize who he used to be. That's all for now. We catch you next week. If this episode was helpful, make sure you share it with another leader, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Make sure you leave me comments, good or bad. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you in the next episode.